Hello, everyone, and welcome to Module 4 of the Snowy Plover classroom training. My name is Francis, and I'm going to be helping to coordinate Snowy Plover Patrol for the Coastal Birds Project with Portland Audubon. So this is going to be a mock survey, and it's going to be a recap of everything that you've learned in the previous 3 modules. And then there will be a quiz at the end. Okay, there are 16 snowy plover management areas in Oregon, but we actually only survey 4 of them on the North Coast. So go ahead and pick a site on the North Coast. Okay, you've picked your site. What's next? You definitely want to coordinate the schedule with your survey partner and volunteer coordinator. So just make sure your partner and you know when you're both available so that you can get out on the beach. There's something else. What else is next? You're going to want to check the weather and tides to make sure that they are right for the day that you're surveying. I usually check the National Weather Service for severe weather alerts. It also has a great extended forecast. You can see what the weather's going to be like for most hours of the day throughout the next week. But you can use whatever one you feel is best for your area. There's also links to them on the Google Drive, which is right here. What are the ideal survey conditions? Is it A, partly cloudy, up to 25-mile-an-hour winds with surge waves possible? B, a sunny day or overcast sky, calm, slight breeze, up to 15 miles an hour, dry, no more than a slight drizzle? Or C, overcast, dry, and gale winds? That's right, it's B, a sunny day, overcast sky, calm, slight breeze, dry, no more than a slight drizzle. So a good tip is if the wind is causing the sand to skitter across the beach, it's time to go inside. The snowy plovers like to hunker down on their little scrapes and nests when it's this windy, so we don't want to disturb them. What are some things that you might want to bring with you? Is it hand sanitizer, water, snacks, binoculars, or a scope? Dressed for changes in the weather because it is Oregon, or cell phone and emergency contacts, or all of the above? I don't know about you guys, but I was thinking about bringing all of these things, but you can bring whatever you feel is best for you. What's the ideal tide to survey? Is it high tide if passage is safe, low tide if passage is safe, slack tide, or any? That's right, it's high tide if passage is safe. This is kind of a trick question because a lot of people like to go at low tide. A good tip is to start at the listed high tide and survey as the water is receding, so that's a falling tide. So if it says high tide is at 9 o'clock, that means that's the moment that the water hits its highest point, and then it starts to go back out. So that's a good time to start, and it's good to always keep an eye on the water when you're in Oregon because the water is really rough and we get a lot of surge waves. If you have better safety, the less you have to worry, and it generally leads to better surveys. The bonus answer here is that it's actually low tide at knee tarts because this beach has access issues. If you're going to be surveying at knee tarts, just let Vanessa or myself know and we can get you all the specifics for this site. What else do you need to look up before you go? I'm going to give you a few moments because there's a few things here. So directions, you're definitely going to want to know how to get to the park, where to park. Is a permit needed? If you don't have one, the park can actually lend you one. You definitely want to familiarize yourself with the terrain. Are you going to have to walk over any trails? Is it uneven ground, thick, dry sand? Are you going to have to cross a creek? Probably not, but that would be good to know. and check the most recent nest data. So if somebody surveyed the week before you and they found any nests, it's going to save you a lot of time if you have that information before you go. And I can send that to you, or we can provide you a link. And lastly, let the volunteer coordinator know you'll be out on the beach, or let somebody know, whether that's a family member or a friend. It's for safety reasons, then you don't get stranded out there. And regardless of all of these things and whether or not you're surveying, if you're on the Oregon coast, you should always know where high ground is and how to evacuate if there's a tsunami. Okay, Survey 123 is loaded on your phone. You know how to find the data forms as a backup. You're ready to go. We've arrived at the park. Record your start time. How long are surveys? Are they A, 4 to 5 hours, B, 2 to 4 hours, C, 1 hour, or D, 30 minutes? That's right, it's B, 2 to 4 hours. And it can actually run longer than this if you find a lot of snowy plovers. The bonus answer here is that it's 10 to 12 miles round trip at Netarts. That's a really long survey. All of these surveys are actually pretty long, and they last, several hours and several miles. So it's good to know before you go that you're going to be out there for a while. Where's the rack line? It's right here. So that's not much of a rack line. There's not a whole lot of debris that washed up. That's actually not from the previous high tide. That's the one before it. The last high tide is where the dark sand is. That's where the water reached its highest point. Where's the foredune area? It's right here. You can see this is where there's a sharp edge. That's where the dunes were graded to restore snowy plover habitat, because they like that wide open sandy beach. Do surveys take place in a straight line, once down and back? You know you haven't missed any habitat? Or is it B, a zigzag or grid formation, to follow snowy plover tracks and look closer at each section of the beach? It's B, a zigzag or grid formation, to follow snowy plover tracks and look closer at each section of the beach. Some survey tips are for one person to walk in the dry sand near the foredune area and one person at the rack line. What's another tip? It is to keep even with your partner and spread out to cover the whole beach. What else is helpful? It's really helpful if one of you has a scope and one has a camera. If you don't have a scope between the two of you, let me know and we can figure that out for you. Okay, we're gonna walk really carefully and quietly. Snowy plovers use camouflage as a method of survival, so they don't like to be seen. They're very elusive little birds. This is how they got the nickname Ghost of the Dunes. So we're gonna try and respect that and not disturb them. We found some tracks. That's exciting. Are these snowy plover tracks? What do you think? Okay, those look like a little bit sharp to be snowy plover tracks. I don't think those are snowy plover tracks. How about these ones? They have wide toes. The toes point inward, kind of like a pigeon toe. These look like plover tracks. But how do we tell if they're semi-palmated or snowy plover tracks? What's the key difference? Is it A, wider toes, B, nail indent at the tip of the tracks, C, ridges on the edge of the tracks, or D, none? It's actually none of these things, so there's no key difference to know if they're snowy plover or semi-palmated tracks. There's only a couple of things that might point us in the right direction. So if it's the right time of year and no semi-palms are around, we can say they might be snowy plover tracks. Otherwise, There's a slight difference in the movement and the way that they run, but there's really no way for us to tell which kind of bird this is between those two. They are plover tracks, so we're gonna follow them from the rack line to the dry sand. Little brown bird, that's exciting. Is this a snowy plover? No, it doesn't look like a snowy plover. We're gonna keep going. Okay, follow the tracks. Do you guys see anything interesting around? Can you spot the scrape? It's right there. Okay, we're gonna log our sightings and keep looking. Anything interesting? You found a nest. Good job. How many eggs are in there? 3. How many eggs are typically in a snowy plover nest? That's right, 3. Good job. We're gonna sweep our tracks with a little bit of beach grass, or if you brought a broom with you, so that we don't lead anybody or any predators over to this spot. And we're gonna arc away when we walk away, so our scent doesn't lead anything to this spot. Good job. We spotted 2 more snowy plovers. Can you guys spot them in this photo? Right there. Good job. Okay, log your sightings. You've completed half of your survey. Good job. Those look like some pretty rough waves. Are you keeping an eye on the water? How much driftwood is in this picture? Is it lots, some, none, or the whole beach? That's a lot of driftwood. If it was the whole beach, the snowy plovers wouldn't have a lot of habitat. What's in the rack line? Look closely and you might find squid eggs, snails, small fish, invertebrates, shells and casings, seaweed, algae, bugs, litter, debris like plastic from the Pacific Gyre. So it looks like, sticks and maybe some dirt on the ground, but there's actually a lot of really interesting things hiding in here. Snowy plovers forage in the rack line year round, so they get all of their nutrients from what they eat based on what washes ashore from the ocean. So they like those macroinvertebrates, like little bugs that hop around, and that's really important to know. How much seaweed is in this picture? Is it none? Some in the rack line? Lots in the rack line? Some in the dry sand? Or lots in the dry sand? It's not quantified, so for the purposes of this survey, we're going to say lots in the dry sand. Some people have different gauges of what that means, a lot or little. So in this case, it's going to be when you're walking down the beach from one end to the other, is it every 50 feet or so? Or is it over 50% of the site in a straight line covered? For macroinvertebrate amounts, how much do you think are going to be in this photo? So we can't really tell. We looked closely and there's a lot of macroinvertebrates hiding in this seaweed. So that's a really good thing because that means more food for the snowy plovers. How much detritus is in this photo? That's a lot of little pieces of wood bits and shells. Is this a snowy plover? Looks really similar. Has the white belly, black legs, got a black beak. Looks very similar, but I don't think that's a snowy plover. That's actually a sanderling, but we don't need to know what kind of bird this is for Snowy Plover Patrol. We just need to know whether or not it's a snowy plover, so that's a no. How about this one? Yep, that's a snowy plover. We're gonna log our sightings. Wow, there's a whole bunch of snowy plovers. How many can you count? 13. This was kind of hard because there's a couple over here in the back that were hard to see on a photo and a presentation. You would have needed a scope to spot those if they were out on the beach. The rest are standing out pretty well. And on the beach, they're not always going to stand out that much. They're going to be more like these ones in the back. Do you see this little one on the right that's hunkered down in a scrape or a little hole? That's how they like to sit sometimes. So when you're scanning, you're really just looking for their little head popping up like that. Okay, good job. We're going to log our sightings. There's a predator nearby, so we're not going to approach any nests. Why are these purple martin boxes being installed? That's because purple martins are actually kind of territorial, so they might help protect snowy plovers by fighting off other predators that try to come nearby. That's a good thing. So we're going to record our data. How many predators did we see at one time? How many streaked-horned larks did we see? Streaked-horned larks are also covered by the Endangered Species Act. There's less than 2,000 of them left in the wild. It looks like there's a set of footprints leading into the restriction area that aren't from us. What do you do if somebody follows you into the snowy plover management area? Do you nicely ask them to leave? Inform them of the restrictions? Educate them as to why it's important the area is undisturbed? All of the above, or call a park ranger so that they can talk to them. So for the purposes of snowy plover patrol, we're going to call a park ranger so that they can talk to them. Even if you do all of the right things, if you're really nice and you ask them to leave, you inform them of the restrictions, sometimes people can be really sensitive to beach access and beach closures. So we're going to call a park ranger. If you're interested in some sort of docent training or communications training so that you can handle these situations properly while out on the beach, protecting the snowy plover areas, let Vanessa or myself know and we can look into that for you. It is good to be aware that other people can be drawn towards their restrictions if they see somebody else in the area. So just be aware of that. Okay, so we are out on the beach recreating, but we're not surveying. Should we go into the management area? What do you guys think? Should we go in there? So in this case, we're going to say no. It's really best to stay on the wet sand. Snowy plovers are sensitive and shy little birds, so we want to give them as much space as possible and as much peace and quiet as possible so that they have a better chance at survival. So we're going to stay on the wet sand with everybody else, and we'll check on the nest the next time that we're surveying. How much recreation could you see in these photos? How many dogs, peoples, horses, and kites do you see? That's a lot of activity. Look at how many people those are. All those horses, dogs running around, there's kites, there's boats, there's ATVs, there's vehicles, and that's a lot of activity for a little bird. I can only imagine. They must be so scared. What disturbance responses do snowy plovers have? There's a few answers here. The first is that they flee. It's a flight response. That's an energetic cost. All of the food that they've saved up and stored away to try and survive, they're now expending on trying to evade some sort of predator. They leave their eggs unattended. So what do we know about eggs? They're meant to be incubated. As far as I'm aware, snowy plovers haven't evolved to leave their eggs unattended, so they really need to have a parent sitting on them. Another response is to stay in place. So they are frozen in fear. That's a predation risk. And even though they're staying still, their body is releasing all sorts of stress hormones. and an increase in heart rate. That's a physiological response. Can you relate to that? Have you ever been in a situation where you've been so scared? Another disturbance response is a broken wing display. So they are literally flopping around on the ground in front of you, trying to lead you away from their nest. All of this activity, too much, can drop the bird's weight and make them sick. So we're going to log our recreation and violations. How many automobiles and ATVs did you see? How many bikes, kites, drones, paragliders, people, dogs, horses? We're going to collect that data and submit it to Oregon parks so that we can help to protect the snowy plovers and ultimately give them a better chance. We are tracking their population and monitoring their survival. We are making a difference. Thank you for giving beach nesting birds a chance. Without all of you, we wouldn't have as many people patrolling these management areas. So we literally couldn't do it without you. Thank you. The survey's complete. We're gonna record our end time. And don't forget to log your volunteer hours. Congratulations, you've completed Module 4. Thank you for attending Snowy Plover Patrol classroom training. Next step is to let me know and I'll send you a quiz and schedule a field training. So before you go out for a survey, let Vanessa or I know and we will go out onto the beach with you for your first time so that you can have a proper field training. Then you'll know all the right things to do. If you have any questions at any time, please feel free to reach out. You can reach me at asopcoastalbirds@gmail.com. That's ASOP coastalbirds@gmail.com. Thank you again for attending.